Shabbat Shalom. What makes this night, tonight, different from all other nights? No matter who you are, no matter where you will be it your first or your 50th seder, the opening question of tonight's Passover Haggadah names the essential ingredient to this evening's festivities, and that is difference. Tonight should be, in every respect, different from all other nights. On all other nights, we eat bread and matzah. Tonight, only matzah. On all other nights, we sit either seated or reclining. Tonight, we recline. The foods we eat, the manner by which we do so, tonight, we break with routine. Even the people are different. For some, tonight means sitting together with extended family, an all too infrequent activity. For others, tonight means just the opposite, welcoming unfamiliar faces to our table or being welcomed to a new table. Tonight should feel and be different from the rest of our nights, the countercultural imperative of the seder. In our post-ethnic, hyper-individualized world, a world in which things only exist insofar as they can be downloaded and shared from one phone to another, tonight teaches us otherwise. Tonight is different. We lean into community, into our tribal identity. We lift our heads up from our handheld devices, and we do the most revolutionary thing of all. We engage in face-to-face dialogue. And you know what? It works. While 20% of American Jews may light Shabbat candles and 50% may fast on Yom Kippur, over 70% participate in a seder of some kind, making tonight the most observed of all Jewish rituals. And of all of the differences, of all of the inversions that make tonight unlike other nights, perhaps the most obvious is a question itself. We begin by by asking, not by declaring. Despite the fact that the script of tonight's ritual is called a Haggadah from the Hebrew root meaning to tell, a quick scan of the text makes clear that it's really more about the asking than about the telling. Think about it. As noted, we begin with Ma Nishtana, the four questions, traditionally sung by the youngest present, presumably to engage, stir curiosity, and provoke wonder. Then, the four children, wise, wicked, simple, and the one who does not know how to ask. Each child is different. Our response is not uniform because our response is just that, a response. We listen first, and then we respond based on the question being asked and by whom. I'm reminded of the classic quip about how Jews converse. We don't listen, we wait. Generally speaking, we do not listen to understand, we listen to respond. Not so teaches the Seder. Tonight we listen to the question asked, the question and the subtext beneath the question, the thing beneath the thing, and then, and only then, do we respond. It was a teacher of my late teacher, Dr. Siegfried Stein, who penned a famous article tracing the origins of the Seder to Greco-Roman symposia, a structured space where guests, long before the days of safe space, gathered to engage, test ideas, and ask big questions without penalty. The search for the afikomen, a physical representation of a quest. The theme of questioning carried all the way through the Seder's penultimate song. Who knows one? Who knows two? Who knows three? An entire evening from beginning to end framed by questions. Freedom, vigilance, empathy, tradition, memory. The Seder doesn't lack for take-home messages. But if there's a skill or a muscle group that the Seder calls us on all to cultivate, it's the art of the interrogative, how to ask and answer questions, to inquire and to listen. The Seder's success, not so much in the answers it provides, but in the spirit of open inquiry that it engenders. Unlike other religions, Judaism situates our faith not in assenting to fixed doctrine or dogmas, but in our ability to formulate a question and equally, if not more important, to listen to a question. As Heschel taught, we are closer to God when we're asking questions than when we think we have the answers. Think about the foundational narratives of our tradition. We had yet to even leave the Garden of Eden when we were confronted with the Bible's first question, "Where are you?" A question which, given it was asked by God, was clearly less about physical location than it was about spiritual orientation. In the next generation, Cain, with his blood-stained hands, is asked, "Where's your brother?" To which Cain famously responds with the wrong question, "Am I my brother's keeper?" At Sodom and Gomorrah, Abraham courageously confronts God with a question, "Shall not the judge of all the earth deal justly?" So too Sarah, when she replies to the promise of a child, "Now that I am withered and old, and my husband old, will I now have this joy?" From Rebekah, with the twins struggling within her, to Esther being challenged by Mordecai if she had not arrived at a royal station for such a time as this. From God's hanging interrogative at the conclusion of the book of Jonah to Job's agonized inquiry seeking to understand the will of God, answered or unanswered, closed or open-ended, the growth points of our people and heroes are situated on questions. Other nations, wrote Rabbi Isidore Epstein, have their monuments of stone. Ours are questions asked and answers given. By a certain telling, it's how the hero of the Exodus, Moses, became Moses. Sometimes I think he may not have actually been the first, second, or third to pass by the burning bush on that day of destiny. He might have just been the one who paused and looked up and asked, "Madua lo yivar hasneh?" Why doesn't the bush burn up? It's only at that point that God calls out to him. Moses was not a good speaker, but he was a good listener. He observed, he asked questions, and then he responded, a quality that made him fit for leadership. The ability or inability to ask a question is also what made Pharaoh Pharaoh. His heart hardened. He was unable to ask if tomorrow could be different than today, unwilling to countenance the possibility that his truth could coexist with other truths, a hardening, a resistance to questioning that ultimately precipitated his downfall. Our heroes, they engage in questions. Our villains, not so much. All of which is why I urge you tonight to dip into this essential ingredient of the seder exercise. Pharaohs do not ask questions, they give orders. Slaves do not ask questions, they take orders. Only free men and women engage in the give and take of dialogue because doing so implies agency, curiosity, and the possibility for change. Far too often, far too many of us sit mummified in our ideological pyramids, unable to dignify alternative ideas and opposing views. We would rather be furious than curious, enrage, not engage, cancel than consider. We would rather repost a view that affirms our long-held views than ask another how it is they arrived at theirs. It's not that every idea needs to be dignified. The second child is reprimanded for committing the offense of writing himself out of our people's narrative. But all four children do have a voice and a place at the Seder. In our community, in our households, there are folk who hold different, radically different views on the issues of the day than each other, than do you. They sit not just at the figurative global Jewish table, but the literal one, and they might just be at your Seder tonight. So when we debate this evening the tale of our people, when we debate the present dramas of our people in Israel, or here in America, don't recline into your orthodoxies. Tonight I ask you to adopt the Seder's posture of questioning, of empathetic listening. seeking to understand and then to be understood. I offer 3 steps taught to me, the ABCs of mindful communication. Step 1, A, for acknowledge. Begin the conversation with an acknowledgement of what we share, not where we differ, the well-being of the Jewish people, love of country, compassion for humanity, love for each other. Set the foundation for what is to come. Step 2, B, breathe. When you ask another with sincerity how they arrived at their views, do the most important and difficult thing of all. Breathe and listen. Fight the urge to pounce, judge, and quash. Activate what scientists call the parasympathetic response, the body's built-in system for calm and connection. Breathe. Just breathe. Step 3, C, choose. Remember, you have agency. You can respond in a way that shuts a conversation down or opens it up. We think to ourselves that the 4th child does not know how to ask because they are too young to do so, but age may have nothing to do with it. Maybe that child, proverbial or real, fears speaking because they believe that if they do, like their big sibling, the 2nd child, they'll be subjected to attack. You have the choice. At patachlo, open up the conversation, as the Haggadah teaches. Resist the impulse to assign ill intent to another just because they believe differently. Express your views in a manner that affirms the right of another to differ. Debates are never won in the moment. I think of debates, and sermons for that matter, as the act of planting seeds. Seeds for ideas that may or may not bear fruit in the future. Whether that seed will take root depends not only on the strength of the idea, but on the care with which it is planted. We do not control the harvest, but we control how we choose to sow. Choose wisely. Acknowledge, breathe, and choose. The ABCs of mindful communication. Mindful communication is hard to do, but it's not rocket science. The principles have been there in the seder all along. You don't need to be a rabbi or an organizational psychologist. All you need to know is that more important than you being able to declare yourself right is the well-being of family and the Jewish people. To repackage Fitzgerald, to hold opposing ideas in mind at the same time and still retain the ability to be family. If you can do that, if those are your North Star values, then everything else will fall into place. This Shabbat is Shabbat Hagadol, the great Shabbat prior to Passover, where we, by way of the Haftorah reading we just read, herald the arrival of Elijah the prophet into our midst. The question is an obvious one. Why Elijah? Why not Moses, Miriam, Aaron, or someone else with a clearer connection to the Passover story? The answer, I believe, is in the text of the Haftorah. Hinei anochi sholeach lachem et Eliyahu hanavi. Behold, I will send to you the prophet Elijah. Veheshiv lev avot al banim velev banim al avotam. He will turn the hearts of parents to children and the hearts of children to parents. The image is just about the most beautiful the tradition has to offer. The turning of hearts, parents to children and children to parents. An intergenerational dialogue by which the story and strength of our people is passed down from one generation to another. An image, I believe, explains Elijah's arrival at our Seder table. The Elijah moment, the moment we are liberated from the narrow straits of our thinking and listen to each other, that is the moment that we cross into freedom. This Passover, we are all searching for answers, and we are all somehow enslaved to the stories we tell ourselves. The key to our freedom will be found in our ability to ask and to countenance big questions, when what makes tonight so very different, becomes so very normal, the way we live every night and every day. Hashta Avde, Lashana Haba B'nei Chorin. This year as slaves, next year as free people. Chag Sameach. Thank you for joining the Park Avenue Synagogue family. I hope you enjoyed the sermon. Please consider supporting our online community by scanning the QR code or by going to supportpas.org or by making a donation. Shalom and see you in Shul.